И Џозеф, вашиот текст има наслов "Како историјата на САД може да ја спаси Северна Македонија и да го порази путинизмот на Балканот". Која е идејата на овој интригантен наслов?
It's very clear what's behind this, because actually Prime Minister Kovachevsky and his government is correct in that it's very important for North Macedonia to continue on the EU track. It's extremely important. They're right about that. And it's not that the government did anything wrong on these constitutional amendments. This was basically pushed onto them by this so-called French proposal. But this is not about criticizing the government. What it's about is, as the title says, saving North Macedonia, because this is absolutely crucial. And I agree with the Prime Minister and President Pendarovsky that this is crucial. And we know why, because failure to pass the amendments will have very negative consequences for North Macedonia. It's not a good option. And just having new elections, that doesn't solve anything either. These amendments are crucially important, but the question is how to pass them. How to pass them. Because this French proposal is inadequate. It has a lot of risks in it. And that's what my article explains, the risks of continued Bulgarian demands on North Macedonia. And so it's up to the United States to step up in a very innovative and original way to save this process, to provide North Macedonia with the assurance that it needs, and to provide Bulgaria with the deterrence to stop further identity aggression. That's my term for this. Identity aggression that is very similar to what Vladimir Putin is doing against Ukraine.
Како да се избегне ветото, идните закани од страна на Бугарија кон Македонија?
Yes, Biljana, you were asking exactly the right question. How to do this? How to take away and deter this leverage that Bulgaria, the power that Bulgaria has by being in the European Union and being able to make these continuous demands. And I have the answer to that. It took me a long time to think of it, but I came up with the answer. The answer rests on this extreme position that Bulgaria and Russia take. That's what I also explained in this article on SAIS Review. This article explains the similarities between Russia's stance on Ukrainian identity and Bulgaria's stance on Macedonian identity. In both cases, Russia and Bulgaria insist there can be only one way of looking at this, and it's our way. And Macedonia is, and the Macedonianism, as President Radev says, is unacceptable. And in both cases, Russia and Bulgaria suggest that the Macedonian identity in Bulgaria's case is artificial, and Ukraine's identity is artificial. So both of them have this absolute position. And here's what's the difference. What is the difference between Putin's line and the line we hear in Sofia? The difference is the Bulgarian position rests on 1 year, 1944. That's what the entire Bulgarian position rests on. So Bulgaria claims we can ignore everything that happened after 1944 because that Macedonian identity was just a fiction created by Tito. But if we can establish before 1944 Macedonian identity, then the entire Bulgarian position of unilateral identity aggression collapses. It collapses if we can establish Macedonian identity prior to 1944. And that's where the United States comes in, and I can explain that.
Вие имате на ум заедничка комисија, тоа би било македонско-американска, но без Бугарија. Зошто?
Exactly. And the United States and North Macedonia are completely entitled to work on this together because they have a strategic dialogue. And under that strategic dialogue, it refers exactly to these kind of questions. So the point is not to prove Bulgaria wrong. That's not my idea, and I say so in the article. It's not to say your idea of historical truth, that's what they say, is wrong, and we're going to give you a different historical truth. That's not the idea. It's not to humiliate Bulgaria. It's not to prove them wrong. It's to introduce a different narrative, one that shows that there are questions about the historical basis that need to be discussed and debated fairly in the joint commission between Bulgaria and North Macedonia. That's the point here. And the United States can do this. The United States can do this even though we are a very young nation. We don't go back hundreds and hundreds of years. We're a young nation, but it doesn't matter because Bulgaria rests on 1 year, 1944, and the United States played a major role in the Balkans in 1919, right after the Balkan Wars. And this is what my own research showed, and it's in my article. This is from the State Department. The State Department's own website, official website, has these historical records in it that shows that President Wilson's envoy here, Frank Polk, was discussing in Paris in 1919 with Prime Minister Clemenceau, the famous French Prime Minister, about the Macedonian minority. And he specifically even mentions Albanian and Macedonian minorities. And the mention of Albanian makes it actually stronger. That when they said Macedonian, they were talking about actual ethnic Macedonians, because otherwise it would have been confusing. Why would you say Albanian and Macedonian and you don't mean specifically an ethnic Macedonian? It wouldn't make any sense. And they use the word Macedonian several times, and then later they also use the word Bulgarian. It shows that American officials were thinking and acknowledging the existence of Macedonians in 1919. Remember, that's well before 1944. So that, again, the entire Bulgarian premise collapses. And that's the point here, is to present Bulgaria finally, with a cost to what I call identity aggression. The same identity aggression that Putin uses against Ukraine when he says Ukrainian identity is artificial. This would provide the challenge to Bulgaria. So Bulgaria would have to say, whoa, if we continue on our line, the United States and North Macedonia, under their strategic dialogue, will be discussing historical records that completely damage our position. And we don't want that. And that's my premise. Remember, the Joint Commission doesn't have to meet. It's only up to the United States to declare when the Joint Commission should meet. Only the United States. So the US can look, and as long as Bulgaria is cooperating in the true spirit of the Friendship Treaty and the French proposal, the true spirit of the European Union, mutual respect, not dictating, we are stronger, we tell you your history. That's Putin's approach. That's not the European Union approach. That's the Putin approach. We are stronger, we have nuclear weapons, we will tell you what your identity is, we will tell you what your history is. That's not the European Union approach. And that's not Western values. And the United States can stand up for Western values, stand against Putinism by this straightforward commission, this joint commission between North Macedonia and the United States, looking at America's own historical records. Please.
Кои ќе бидат членови на оваа комисија? Политичари, историчари?
Oh, it's very clear. This will be historians. This will be an exercise, and I explain here, Biljana, it's very important to understand this, that the terms that are in my article, it's spelled out in my article exactly of one paragraph, just a couple sentences, that the United States and North Macedonia would issue to establish this commission. And the words come from the Friendship Treaty. They are the same provision in the Friendship Treaty that Bulgaria insists upon. The one that is speaking about how we have to do objective inquiry and insisting the scientific approach. Okay, that's fine. That same language, that same approach is going to apply to the United States and to North Macedonia in the Macedonian-American Joint Commission. So how can Bulgaria complain? The United States and North Macedonia are simply applying the same words that Bulgaria insists upon. That Bulgaria says, see, you have to do this through the Joint Commission. So, okay, if that's the language you like in Sofia, well, we like the same language here in Washington and in Skopje, and we will apply that. And the United States and North Macedonia, they're historians under the coordination of the State Department Office of the Historian. You may not know that. The State Department has its own historian, and they have an advisory committee, and they can easily bring these historians together and look at, for example, the papers of President Wilson, where he, and here in this case, his own envoy were speaking about Macedonians in 1919. And I say again, this immediately calls into question the Bulgarian entire premise, which is the Macedonian identity only begins in 1944.
И Џозеф, објаснете како Америка може да ја убеди Бугарија сушност да се основа ваква комисија. Бугарија ќе има против, можеби.
They don't need to. The United States does not need to. That's the beauty of this. The United States doesn't have to ask Bulgaria's permission. Bulgaria doesn't get a vote on this. No. This is between...
They will not vote, but they will be against this commission, maybe.
They will be against it. And okay, and this is exactly, it's a great question you ask me. It's an excellent question you ask because it brings us to the reality. The reality is that the United States is recognized. We see this. We see Gabriel Escobar coming to Skopje, trying to convince the Macedonians and all citizens of Macedonia and the parliamentarians to vote for this. We see that they understand this. Escobar is correct to be worried about this. This is very worrying. And remember, let's talk about the events in Banska, in north of Kosovo that just happened, 24th of September. Look how damaging this is to the whole process here. You have potential chaos there, confrontation. It's still very tense. And then you're going to allow next door, neighboring country is going to somehow go into vacuum because it cannot pass these amendments. What will happen within North Macedonia? What will happen in terms of understandings there? I cite survey results that are very disturbing in North Macedonia. And we know all about all these allegations of malfeasance. We know about this change to the criminal code. The atmosphere is very bad. I'm not going to mention it, but there's a very negative political party that is on the rise in North Macedonia. So the United States has to recognize this. Not just Gabriel Escobar, but all the way up to Secretary Blinken. And they said, we have a very complicated situation between Serbia and Kosovo. Now we want to have this whole downturn in North Macedonia, so they can't do it. It would be a mistake. And so they don't, rather than allowing this process to not go forward, this is the better option. And Biljana, if you care to, I'll explain exactly how they could use this with Bulgaria. I can explain that. Remember again, Bulgaria does not get a vote on issues between the United States and North Macedonia. That's the first point here. I'm going to continue, but that's very important. This is a bilateral matter between North Macedonia and Skopje in their own strategic dialogue. Skopje and Washington can agree, and Sofia or any other country does not get a vote. And so that's where the leverage comes, the power, the influence for the United States. So the fact that the US would consider to do this, it could be used here with Sofia to get them to adjust their position. Now, in my view, the US, and the US can always point, the second here is that, remember, the Commission only meets if the United States says so. It says that in my statement, my recommendation, the Commission will only meet at the discretion, that is the decision of the United States. So Bulgaria will know that that this is, the United States will be controlling this. And the goal, and Bulgaria, they know this, the goal isn't some victory to impose a different historical truth, as Bulgaria says, on Bulgaria. No, it's to get Bulgaria to return to this original spirit of the friendship treaty. It's called a friendship treaty. Bulgaria needs to act like a friend and not like a Putin-style identity aggressor. And that's the assurance here. That's the assurance. And that's why I think the United States should do this. And in my view, the third reason is, at first, Bulgaria will be angry, but later, in Bulgaria, we will see moderate voices who will understand and who will blame the government and blame President Radev for pushing too hard and being so aggressive. And now he has brought United States and North Macedonia in this own joint commission. That's what will happen. The opposition will be able to say, you made this mistake. You are the ones who pushed so hard and did all of this that you damaged our position. And the moderate voices, and there are moderate voices in Bulgaria, will come forward, and they will have to accept this. And the United States here, again, has to take some risk. Because if you take no risk, if all you do is continue to come and give speeches and say, please pass these amendments, please join the EU, and try to, behind the scenes, frighten certain people and so forth, you get the criminal code. This is what you get. This change to the criminal code, which is very upsetting. It's a very bad idea to give de facto amnesty to Nikola Gruevski and to others. This is against rule of law. It's against what the United States says it stands for. It's against the purpose of joining the European Union in the first place. So the whole European Union is about adopting and accepting these reforms and these standards of democracy, of rule of law, and accountability. So it's just defeating. Oh, well, we're going to pass the amendments, but we're going to give amnesty to people who have shown corruption. And we have to remember, the United States sanctioned former Prime Minister Gruevski for what it called, this is according to the United States, significant corruption, involvement in significant corruption. So we're going to allow amnesty for people who, according to the United States, their own sanctions, it's not me saying this, to do that, and in order to advance in the European Union and have rule of law. Does that make any sense? I don't think so. And I think the voters, the citizens in North Macedonia, I think all of them, Macedonian, Albanian, Bosniak, Bulgarian, the small Bulgarian minority, Croats, Jews, others, they will understand. I think that they will know that, look, we're sacrificing democracy and rule of law to somehow get on to open a process where Bulgaria can continue to block. Please.
Вие споменавте сличности помеѓу реториката на Русија кон Украина, еднакво таква е реториката на Бугарија кон Македонија, за што говори и Огнен Вангелов, тој е проминентен научник, но и член на историската комисија. Што мислите, оваа реторика ќе исчезне, ќе ја снема, како е тоа можно воопшто?
Of course not. There's nationalistic rhetoric in every country. Even the most democratic countries. Go to Sweden and you can see nationalistic rhetoric. But does it control Sweden? Is Sweden controlled by nationalistic rhetoric? Does Sweden operate with its neighbors based on nationalistic rhetoric? Does it say, Denmark, you owe us, and Finland, you owe us, and we will tell you in Finland what is your identity? No, they don't operate like that. So of course there's nationalist rhetoric. But the point is Bulgaria is not all-powerful country, does not have nuclear weapons. And we should remember here why we are fighting and supporting Ukraine in its fight. It's not only just to help them in their struggle, it's our struggle. This is our struggle. This is Putinism. And what I'm talking about, that's why I encourage people to read the whole article. I hope that it's better to read in English, but they can read a translation. Read the article. And you're right to mention Ogden Vangelov, who is an outstanding academic. He's one of the leading experts on this topic, and including on identity, understanding identity in general. And people should read the article and look at the comparisons. I found a comparison myself between Putin's speech in 6 months before he launched the invasion. You can read this description that Putin says about Ukraine, and then read below it what I also took from Bulgaria's position in its memorandum, official memorandum that it sent to its EU co-members. It sent this, and look at the two. I encourage the viewers, Liliana, to just read this article. It's not that long, and look at how close. It's almost identical. It is almost identical. It's as if Bulgaria was copying Russia or Russia was copying Bulgaria. That's how similar is the rhetoric. That's the mentality. We are more powerful. We tell you what is your history. We tell you what is your identity. We'll tell you, even in Ukraine's case, what is your territory. So that's what's unacceptable. That's what the fight in Ukraine is all about. So we cannot have that version in the Balkans. And I know in Bulgaria, there are many Bulgarians who do not agree with this, even if they hold national views, which is understandable. Throughout the Balkans, throughout Europe, people have their own version of nationalism. But the point is, the only way to coexist is to discuss these, have a dialogue. That's what the Friendship Treaty was meant to do, to discuss these on an even level, not from a level, we tell your historians what to do. No, that's completely wrong. And that's what the United States Commission would counter and would challenge Bulgaria, and would always be there if Bulgaria tried to again say, we will tell you Macedonians, we'll tell you in North Macedonia what your history is. If they try that, the US says, okay, well, we will have our own conversation, and it'll be done by historians working in good faith with complete freedom to as historians, professionals, to objectively look. But we know the reality. I already showed it to you in my article. The reality is the United States officials were seeing Macedonian identity in 1919. And that's something that Bulgaria has to be aware of. For the first time, Bulgaria would have to understand the risks of doing this. That's what would change. That's what President Radev would have to understand. If you continue to push identity aggression, you are going to face risks to your entire premise, the entire premise of your narrative. Please.
Македонските власти ја притискаат ВМРО-ДПМН да ги изгласа уставните измени. Сега, прашањето, клучното прашање, како ќе ја убеди ВМРО-ДПМН, Америка како ќе ја убеди ВМРО-ДПМН да гласа за овие уставни измени?
Well, this is the point. This is my point. My point is that if the United States, instead of the United States coming and sending envoys to Skopje to come into Skopje and say, we want to see you go into the European Union, please pass these amendments. Instead of just doing that, the United States should give the government the help it needs. It should give parliamentarians the confidence, citizens the confidence, what I call the assurance. The United States should give this assurance by its own, by this action, by this one commission. Just, Liliana, we're only talking about a couple of sentences, literally a couple of sentences that could transform this entire dynamic. And then citizens and members of parliament could say, this is something new. This is something new. It's not just VIMRO, it's all the members of parliament could say, look at this situation. The United States is prepared to have a joint commission that will prevent and deter Bulgaria from dictating about our identity and our history, of making endless demands. And I tell you, I was pleased that my friend, Foreign Minister Bujar Osmani, that he acknowledged this in the recent interview with the German newspaper, yes, when he said that Bulgaria will, as he put it, formulate new demands. Osmani said he recognized the reality. Bulgaria will formulate new demands. And it was good that Foreign Minister Osmani did that. And so I'm recognizing the reality. I'm looking at the reality.
Дали вие зборувавте воопшто за овие ваши идеи кои ги представувате во текстот со некои од официјалните, високи официјални представници во Вашингтон, во Соединетите Американски држави?
No, I did not. So
Прашањето е дали ќе ве слушаат, Џозеф?
I know these officials very well, and I can tell you what I have done. I have discussed with senior officials, senior U.S. officials, the need to do more in North Macedonia to pass these amendments than just talking about how important the EU is, or, as we say, twisting arms. I have had directly, personally, those conversations with senior U.S. officials, and I've told them this is not enough. What you're doing is not enough to just say, oh, we want to see you in the European Union, and twisting the arms like that. And I've told them that's not enough. The United States has to stand up for its own values here. It has to stand against Putinism. And that's what I want to close here with. This type of identity aggression is Putinism. And that's what the United States should be standing up to. We don't want Putin telling Ukraine what your history is, what your identity is. And we don't want Bulgaria doing that either. They have a friendship commission. There's a French proposal. We need this United States effort to return Bulgaria back to the original spirit of the Friendship Treaty and the spirit of the European Union and the French proposal, to move into the European, accepting and applying European Union values. Mutual respect, identity issues. This is the principle. It's written in at the end of my article. It's very important. Differences over history, identity, and language must be resolved through mutual respect, discussion, dialogue, and debate, yes, but on the level of mutual respect, not on I am more powerful than you. That's Putinism. Thank you.
Вие гледавте Аргумент, ви благодарам на вниманието. Пријатно.